I have a soft spot for KATO's pocket line freight set. It wasn't only just my first Engage Loco set, but is also a wonderful way to get started in the hobby. On top of this, the little steeple cab shunter loco at the heart of this set is a magnificently smooth and reliable runner. However, while KATO calls this freight set a starter set, and it is indeed a good way to start off a freight train collection of wagons, I always thought that this train would make an ideal rail maintenance team. Except for the one item that's missing, that is, a work crane. Now, I did toy with the idea of making my own crane, but in short, this proved to be a dead end and the project was a complete disaster. Fast forward a few weeks though, and look what I discovered on eBay, a Fleischmann Rail Maintenance crane. While I'm trying to keep within a budget, I couldn't resist this piece and snapped it up immediately. It turns out that you kinda do get what you pay for, and Fleischmann's reputation is well deserved, as this little model is very well detailed and put together. This example is the Fleischmann 8502 Engage 10-ton maintenance crane. Now, while it's in the Deutsches Bahn livery, I'm willing to be a bit loose with accuracy here. German railway equipment is exported globally, and Japan must surely have an equivalent. So let's just pretend it's an import. This is the first time I've matched up my KATO set with the Fleischmann crane, and I was over the moon to see that my idea about a maintenance train was justified, as the crane completes a lovely looking little set. Well, in my opinion anyway. Having actually completed a set I'm happy with, I can't help but wondering whether I should finish the set off with some judicious weathering. It is a work crane after all, so I imagine it'll be in a well-used condition. Aside from the Fleischmann crane rig, I've acquired some additional rolling stock to flesh out my freight collection. The first of the pair of wagons that I have here is a long Takai 43,000 gasoline tanker, produced in 1967 and owned by both private companies like Nippon Oil and JNR and JRF. It's nice to have a bit of variety that I can add to my freight trains, even if isolated wagons might be unusual. But it's a very impressive model and comes with a variety of decals so that you can brand it with whichever oil company that you wish. I'll have to look into what companies these are first though. The other newcomer is a JNR covered wagon type WAMU 8000. Though rather amusingly, from what I've been able to discover about this particular all-white version of the WAMU 8000 wagon, this was one that was specifically used for fish transportation. An interesting fact I found out is that I thought these fish wagons were just ice or refrigerated cars. But because the Japanese love their fish fresh, apparently Japan produced wagons that were full of big water tanks just to keep the fish alive until delivery. And the hits keep on coming, they say, if you're over 60 like me. Yet another eBay haul by my brother netted me a couple more gorgeous blue coaches for my sleeper train set. Now, I know purists might balk at my ad hoc assembly of this particular train, but as I mentioned in a previous Mill Geekachu episode, I'm playing a little loose with authenticity when it comes to, in particular, very long trains. My restricted layout size and track length means I cannot accurately simulate the actual length of real trains, lest I run out of actual track. So any of my trains will be avatars for the real thing, so take my modelling here with a pinch of salt. Disclaimer aside though, you have to admit that even in the short form version, the sight of several of these beautiful blue coaches together is rather stunning. And finally, to round off this episode, I'm dropping in a few works in progress shots of my planned layout, scenery and accessories. Let's begin with a catch up of my first building attempt, my Japanese rural railway station. Try saying that more than once. Now, this model has been hanging around for a good while now. This is mainly because I hit a sort of roadblock when it came to painting. It's here it suddenly became apparent that my stroke-inflicted issues with manual dexterity hit home. Building models was easier to get around, but painting demands a level of precision that my wonky hand made somewhat problematic. Anyway, I persevered. Took a lot of time, and I'm glad to say that I'm seeing some improvement in my ability to paint and that the model is actually now progressing. While I continued to struggle with my first building, I'd also made a start on my second. Perhaps that was a bit rash, but I was keen to try and compare different construction techniques. I discovered a very rudimentary N-gauge garage model on Thingiverse, and so was keen to try and see how well it would come out on my FDM printer. And I should emphasise that when I say rudimentary, the model was little more than a lean-to shed than a properly enclosed structure. So, I had two goals with this model: see if it would print and whether it would be of any use, and then see if I could customise it for use on my layout. Simples. No. Well, as you can see from the footage that I've been showing you, the model turned out to be an easy print, and it was also quite easy to modify to become, I had decided, a rural Japanese gas station. At the moment, I'm working to create the interior of the building, including making a little convenience store on one side and a fully equipped mechanics workshop on the other. As a quirky little aside for the garage model, I reckon that you can't do a Japanese commercial diorama without including some vending machines. So I 3D printed a few simple shapes to represent the cabinets, with various recesses and extrusions to represent the parts. Now these are going to be pretty small, so I opted to use the trick of 2D printing the innards and pasting them into the main recesses. My cunning plan would be that I would glue a thin sheet of transparent plastic over that to give the impression of a glazed window. Now you could shrink down a photo of a real vending machine, but I opted to create the contents, the packaging and bottles and whatever, in a vector drawing package for greater definition and brighter colours at this small scale. So I'm nearly there, and I hope to show off the finished project in a future episode. With Gary Newman running through my head, another ageing reference, I move on to the next set of props for my N-gauge layout that I'm planning. Some tiny vehicles. Long story short, N-gauge cars are expensive for what they are. I did buy a couple, including a gorgeous Oxford Models MGB sports car. But then I realised that if I populated my layout in this way, that it would cost me a small fortune, and this is money that would be better spent on track and rolling stock. So, using some software called Tinkercad, I experimented in creating some very simplified car designs. I didn't want them to be little masterpieces. This is N-gauge after all, so chances are that any fine detail would be lost. All I really wanted and needed was some vaguely vehicle-shaped props. Everything went surprisingly well, after a lot of trial and error that is, and I am now at the dreaded painting stage, which is the hardest for me of course. So once again I'm experimenting with shortcuts to get a passable effect without the stress of intricate and laboured work. I'm always looking for the shortcuts. And that's it for this episode. Hopefully there'll be something here that'll be of interest to you, and I'll just sign off with a bit of a request. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more at a more frequent production rate, then please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. It'll give me the incentive I need to get off my ass and actually make more of these things. Thanks for watching.